Tylee Ryan was born on September 24, 2002 in the United States. She was Lori Vallow's biological daughter from a previous marriage to Joseph Ryan. Those who knew Tylee described her as an intelligent, creative, and strong-willed teenager who loved photography and spending time with her younger brother. She had grown into a protective and caring older sister, often looking after JJ with patience and devotion. Joshua Jackson Vallow, known as JJ, was born on May 25, 2012. He was adopted by Lori and her late husband, Charles Vallow. Shortly after birth, JJ lived with autism spectrum disorder and required additional support and structure in his daily life. Despite these challenges, he was a joyful, energetic child who brought light to those around him. JJ shared an especially close bond with his paternal grandparents, Kay and Larry Woodcock, who remained deeply involved in his life and advocated fiercely for his well-being. Before the tragic events that would unfold, both children lived relatively ordinary lives. They attended school, enjoyed family outings, and were surrounded by people who cared about them. Tylee was entering her late teenage years with dreams and ambitions ahead of her. JJ thrived in environments where he felt safe and loved. Their lives, though touched by the complexities of blended families and past divorces, seemed stable on the surface. However, beneath that appearance, forces were quietly shifting that would lead to unimaginable tragedy. Understanding who Tylee and JJ were as individuals is essential to comprehending the profound loss their deaths represent. In mid-2019, a series of alarming events began to unfold that would set the stage for the children's disappearance. On July 11, 2019, Charles Vallow, Lori's husband and JJ's adoptive father, was shot and killed in Chandler, Arizona. The shooter was Lori's brother, Alex Cox, who claimed he acted in self-defense during a confrontation.
The fight with my brother-in-law, and I shot him in self-defense.
Is he breathing?
I can't tell.
Are you willing to go over to him and check?
Sure. Yeah, there's blood. He's not moving.
Lori supported this account, and authorities initially did not file charges against Alex. However, Charles had previously expressed concerns about Lori's increasingly erratic behavior and her growing obsession with apocalyptic religious beliefs. Shortly after Charles's death, in August 2019, Lori made a significant decision. She moved with Tylee and JJ from Arizona to Rexburg, Idaho, a small college town in the eastern part of the state. This relocation was not random. It brought her into closer proximity to Chad Daybell, a self-published author of religious fiction centered on doomsday prophecies and near-death experiences. Chad had gained a following within certain fringe religious communities, particularly those influenced by extreme interpretations of Latter-day Saint teachings. Lori and Chad had met earlier at a religious conference, and their relationship quickly intensified. Both shared radical beliefs about the end times, spiritual warfare, and the existence of dark and light spirits inhabiting human bodies. They believed they had been chosen for a special mission in the last days before Christ's return. Their ideology grew increasingly extreme, isolating them from friends and family who questioned their views. This growing relationship between Lori and Chad, rooted in shared apocalyptic beliefs, became a crucial turning point. It created a dangerous environment where reality and delusion blurred, setting the stage for the horrific acts that would soon follow. The timeline of when Tylee Ryan and JJ Vallow were last seen alive is critically important to understanding this case. On September 8, 2019, Tylee was last seen during a family trip to Yellowstone National Park. Photographs from that day show her visiting the park with Lori, JJ, and Lori's brother Alex Cox. This photographic evidence represents the final confirmed sighting of Tylee alive, making it a pivotal moment in the investigation timeline. JJ Vallow was last seen at Kennedy Elementary School in Rexburg on September 23, 2019. He attended school that day as usual, interacting with teachers and classmates. However, the very next day, September 24th, Lori contacted the school and informed administrators that she would be withdrawing JJ to homeschool him instead. This abrupt decision raised no immediate alarms at the time, but it would later become a significant detail in the investigation. After that notification, JJ was never seen again by anyone outside Lori's immediate circle. Investigators would later uncover crucial evidence that filled in gaps in the timeline. Cell phone location data placed Alex Cox at Chad Daybell's property in Rexburg during the period immediately following when both children were last seen. This data became instrumental in establishing when and potentially where the children disappeared. The cell phone records showed repeated visits to Chad's rural property, creating a pattern that investigators found deeply suspicious. The disappearances were not immediately reported. Lori continued to live her life as though nothing had happened, making no attempts to contact authorities or express concern for her missing children. Friends and family members who asked about the children received evasive answers or were told they were safe and staying with relatives. This deception would continue for months. Following the children's disappearance, a series of suspicious events unfolded rapidly. On October 19, 2019, Chad Daybell's wife, Tammy Daybell, died suddenly at their home in Salem, Idaho. Chad reported that Tammy had died in her sleep from what he described as natural causes. Given that Tammy was only 49 years old and had been in apparently good health, her sudden death raised questions. However, Chad declined an autopsy, and Tammy was quickly buried. Just 2 weeks after Tammy's death, on November 5, 2019, Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell were married in a small ceremony in Kauai, Hawaii. The speed of this marriage, occurring so soon after Tammy's death, and while Lori's children were missing, struck many as deeply inappropriate and suspicious. Friends and family members who learned of the wedding were shocked and disturbed by the timing. On November 26, 2019, police officers from the Rexburg Police Department conducted a welfare check at Lori's apartment. This check was prompted by concerns raised by Kay and Larry Woodcock, JJ's grandparents, who had been unable to contact their grandson for months. When officers arrived and asked about JJ's whereabouts, Lori lied directly to them. She claimed that JJ was staying with a family friend in Arizona. Officers asked to see JJ or verify his safety, but Lori provided excuses and delays. Within 24 hours of that welfare check, Lori and Chad abruptly fled Idaho. They left without informing authorities, traveling back to Hawaii, where they had married. Their sudden departure, combined with Lori's lies to police, immediately elevated concerns. Investigators now viewed both Lori and Chad as suspects in a potential crime involving the missing children. After Lori and Chad fled to Hawaii, the investigation intensified significantly. Rexburg police, working with the FBI and other agencies, began a comprehensive search for Tylee and JJ. Media coverage of the missing children spread nationally, generating tips and public interest. Investigators focused heavily on analyzing cell phone records, financial transactions, and witness statements to piece together what had happened to the children. A major breakthrough came from cell phone location data. Records showed that Alex Cox's phone had pinged at Chad Daybell's rural property in Fremont County, Idaho, on multiple occasions in September 2019, specifically around the dates when Tylee and JJ were last seen. This evidence provided investigators with probable cause to obtain a search warrant for Chad's property. On June 9, 2020, law enforcement executed that search warrant at Chad Daybell's home in Salem, Idaho. What they discovered confirmed the worst fears of investigators, family members, and the public. Human remains were found buried in Chad's backyard. The remains were located in two separate areas of the property. Tylee Ryan's remains were found in a fire pit area. Her body had been burned and dismembered, making identification initially difficult. Forensic examination and dental records confirmed her identity. The condition of her remains indicated deliberate destruction, an act that profoundly shocked investigators. JJ Vallow's body was discovered in a shallow grave elsewhere on the property. He had been wrapped tightly in plastic bags and bound with duct tape. His small body was positioned in a manner suggesting he had been restrained. The discovery was devastating to all involved in the investigation. Chad Daybell was arrested immediately upon the discovery of the remains. Lori, still in Hawaii, was taken into custody shortly thereafter and extradited back to Idaho to face charges. The evidence collected from Chad Daybell's property and through digital forensics painted a disturbing picture of premeditation and motive. Beyond the physical remains, investigators found crucial electronic evidence. Text messages and email communications between Lori and Chad revealed the depth of their delusional belief system. In these messages, they referred to Tylee, JJ, and others as zombies, people whose bodies they believed had been taken over by dark spirits. They discussed the need to eliminate these dark spirits to fulfill their religious mission. Cell phone location data corroborated the timeline. Investigators had constructed Alex Cox's phone placed him at Chad's property on September 9, 2019, the day after Tylee was last seen at Yellowstone. His phone was also tracked to the same location around September 23, 2019, coinciding with JJ's disappearance. Alex Cox died suddenly in December 2019 from what was determined to be natural causes, but his involvement in the children's deaths was evident from the digital trail he left behind. Testimonies from friends, family members, and former associates provided critical context. Several individuals described how Lori and Chad's beliefs had grown increasingly extreme over time. They spoke of conversations where Lori claimed to have special spiritual powers, including the ability to identify possessed individuals. Former friends recalled being told they or their children had dark spirits and needed to be avoided. The prosecution's theory centered on the belief that Lori and Chad saw the children as obstacles to their relationship and their perceived spiritual mission. Financial motives also played a role, as Lori continued collecting Social Security survivor benefits for JJ after his death. The combination of religious delusion, financial gain, and romantic obsession created a deadly mix that led to the murders. The legal proceedings against Lori Vallow Daybell and Chad Daybell began in earnest following their arrests in 2020. Both faced serious criminal charges related to the deaths of Tylee Ryan and JJ Vallow, as well as other related crimes. Lori Vallow Daybell was formally charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder for the deaths of her children, conspiracy to commit first-degree murder, and grand theft for continuing to collect Social Security benefits and other financial support for Tylee and JJ after their deaths. She also faced charges related to the death of Tammy Daybell, Chad's former wife. Chad Daybell faced similar charges, including 2 counts of first-degree murder for Tylee and JJ, first-degree murder for his wife Tammy Daybell, conspiracy to commit murder, and destruction, alteration, or concealment of evidence. Prosecutors built their case methodically, relying on the extensive evidence collected during the investigation. This included cell phone location data, financial records, witness testimonies, forensic evidence from the burial sites, and the disturbing text messages between Lori and Chad. The prosecution argued that the defendants were motivated by a combination of religious delusion, romantic obsession, and financial gain. They demonstrated how Lori and Chad's relationship intensified after they met, how their beliefs became increasingly extreme, and how they systematically removed anyone they viewed as obstacles. The timeline established through digital evidence and witness testimony proved crucial in demonstrating premeditation and coordination between the defendants. Lori's trial began in April 2023 in Boise, Idaho. After weeks of testimony and evidence presentation, on May 12, 2023, the jury found Lori Vallow Daybell guilty on all counts, including 2 counts of first-degree murder for Tylee and JJ, conspiracy charges, and grand theft. On July 31, 2023, she was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The judge cited the heinous nature of the crimes and the betrayal of trust involved when a mother murders her own children. Chad Daybell's trial has been delayed multiple times due to various legal motions and procedural matters. As of 2025, he remains in custody awaiting trial. The Lori Vallow Daybell case captured national and international attention from the moment the children were reported missing in late 2019 through Lori's conviction in 2023. The case became one of the most closely followed true crime stories of the era, generating extensive media coverage across television news, newspapers, online platforms, and social media. The disturbing combination of missing children, a mother who refused to cooperate with authorities, apocalyptic religious beliefs, and multiple suspicious deaths created a story that gripped public attention. Numerous documentaries, podcasts, and investigative series emerged dedicated to examining the case. Major networks produced specials detailing the timeline of events, the investigation, and the eventual discovery of the children's remains. True crime podcasts devoted dozens of episodes to analyzing every aspect of the case, from the religious ideology that motivated the crimes to the investigative techniques used to solve them. The public reaction was one of horror and disbelief. Many people struggled to comprehend how a mother could harm her own children, especially in the name of religious beliefs. The case sparked broader conversations about the dangers of extremist ideologies, the vulnerability of children and families influenced by cult-like belief systems, and the importance of community awareness and intervention when warning signs appear. The case also highlighted the critical role of persistent family members, particularly JJ's grandparents, whose refusal to accept excuses and whose demands for a welfare check ultimately triggered the investigation that uncovered the truth. Their advocacy became a model for how family members can push authorities to act when children are at risk. The lasting impact of this case extends beyond true crime entertainment. It exposed how deeply deception and delusion can penetrate families, and it reinforced the need for vigilance in protecting vulnerable children from harm.